Welcome to another podcast of London, Ontario. Um, this one is called London, Ontario, the Horse and Wagon Delivery Men of the Past audio podcast. So far, we have done many audio podcasts as well as some video ones. And the way to see those and listen to those is to go to youtube.com, Old Stuff Show, and then search the title. Today's title is London, Ontario, the Horse and Wagon Delivery Man of the Past audio podcast. We hope that you are enjoying these, and if you need to catch up on any of them, just go to my channel, Old Stuff Show, on YouTube, and I'm using the video and the audio for podcasts with that channel. I have, as a youngster, fond memories of the delivery men. In the old days, it was a thrill when any one of these men came down our street to deliver. My mother would put a card out in the window which indicated that the horse and the wagon would stop and deliver at the house. In the instance of milk, for more milk, he would put a milk bottle out on the porch with a ticket inside the top of it. And London had a couple of well-known dairies in the past. Obviously, Silverwoods was the iconic dairy. There was Mark Ayres, and there was London Pure Milk, which were both common. And the milk was delivered in bottles. Sometimes the bottles were cream top, where it was a bulb at the top of the bottle, and the cream would rise to the top. And mother would spoon it out to use it in whatever way she needed to. There was also the bread man and his wagon, and lots of good items were delivered by the bread man. Also, there was the ice man for the ice boxes, and there was the fishmonger who would bring fish to the door. There was the garbage man. Everybody had to come down the street to do it manually. It was much different than today's society. One man I talked to said he peddled milk during the 1930s and started his delivery at 3 a.m. and he worked 7 days a week. And then when he got his route down, he would go back and work at the dairy. And people weren't afraid of work in those days. One person told me that their grandfather owned the London Pure Milk Dairy. He started out having a milk route, and later he learned with Albert Utting to start the London Pure Milk. It was located on Dundas Street opposite the Bucket House, and that's just west of today's police station. The building is still there, but has been turned into offices. Another man told me that he worked with a man who was once a milkman for London Pure Dairy. He said that around Christmas time, his customers would give him a shot of whiskey. And one time he got kind of drunk and he couldn't deliver anymore because he didn't know which way to go. But the horse knew and took him from home to home because the horse knew the route. The bread man had a route with a horse and buggy, and he told me that his horse was probably the smartest horse he's ever had. And he would go to the Lewis Bakery 6 blocks from his house. He left his car there, and from the bakery garage, and then he would take the car home, but the horse would come with the wagon all by itself to pick him up at his house. These horses knew the route perfectly, and in the story too of the horse on my street with the bread man, there was a dead end, and the bread man would go in, and then the horse would go on by itself to the end of the street, turn around and stop, pick up the bread man. Another instance, the bread man told me that he had stopped at a house and got out of the wagon with his basket of bread and other things, and lady wanted something else back in the wagon, so he went back to get it and then got out of the wagon again and to take it to the woman. Well, the horse thought he got into the wagon to go to the next route, so he went all by himself up to the market downtown, which was a few blocks away, and the bread man had to catch up with him on foot. Another instance of a horse being very, very smart. So the bread and the milk and all of these things came together. I remember the iceman coming, and kids would love to get little chips of ice from the back of the wagon. And most people had an ice box. They needed the ice for the ice box. When the milkman came to my house, because it was a dead-end street, I would beg him for a ride to the end of the street sometimes, and that was a real thrill. And he would drop me off just 5 minutes later, but it was still a thrill to remember, of course. These vendors were just so important to society at that time. You know, and we wouldn't have been able to survive without them. And of course, the garbage man, but also there were people who were looking for junk. The junk man came by, and you would get bottles and rags and bones and whatever, and an early example of recycling in the old days. So it was something that you know, they would be able to get rid of any excess things that they didn't need in those times. I can't remember the last time that milk and so on was delivered in that method, but it ended pretty well by the end of the 1950s, I would think. And now we're into today's world where you can order just about anything through, you know, for delivery through Uber or whatever. So we kind of got back to that way again, but most people still go to the store and buy their own necessities. So another interesting thing about life in society in those days, and the horse and wagon delivery was something that a lot of people still living today would remember. If you're in your 80s and over, you would remember that very vividly. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast, and again, tune in. Again, there will be more coming, and look up the ones that you missed on youtube.com, Old Stuff Show, and there's lists there that you can look at. Lots of London ones. I have a three-part series of London on the Thames. And the first title was London, Ontario, on and at the Thames River, its past interesting history. And then we moved on to London, Ontario, the 1937 flood, audio podcast. And then we moved on to the London, Ontario, the Victoria disaster of 1881. And also recently I added a little fun thing. It's historical trivia about London, and you would go to London, Ontario, test your trivia knowledge of London's past, audio podcast, and it's multiple choice, so you can guess. And so there's many more. Again, thanks very much for listening, and we'll hope you can hear us again. Thank you.